The distress beacon cut through the silence like a scream. Dennis Rowe had been hauling medical supplies for 3 weeks straight, and his eyes burned from staring at the same star patterns. The beacon changed everything. It pulsed on his scanner with an urgency that made his chest tight. He should have ignored it. Everyone who traveled the outer reaches knew the rules. You kept your head down, delivered your cargo, and went home. You did not investigate strange signals. You especially did not investigate signals coming from Sarkathi warships. But Dennis had been an emergency responder once, back when he still believed he could save people. Old habits died hard. His fingers moved across the console before his brain could stop them, adjusting course toward the source of the signal. The warship appeared on his view screen 20 minutes later. It drifted without power, spinning slowly in the black. Massive tears ran along its hull like claw marks. Dennis had seen Sarkathi vessels before, always at a distance, always moving with terrible purpose. This one looked dead. He brought his cargo hauler alongside and extended the docking clamp. The connection sealed with a hiss that seemed too loud. Dennis sat in his chair for a long moment, staring at the airlock door. Every training video he had ever watched told him this was stupid. Sarkathi were warriors. They were brutal. They killed humans on sight. But the distress beacon kept pulsing. Dennis pulled on his environmental suit and checked the seals twice. His hand shook slightly as he picked up his portable scanner. The airlock cycled open and the smell hit him first. Even through his suit filters, he could detect the sharp chemical scent of a ship dying. The corridor beyond was dark, except for emergency lighting that flickered red and sickly. Bodies lay scattered across the floor. Sarkathi warriors in their distinctive armor, scales gleaming dully in the low light. Dennis stepped carefully between them, his boots making soft sounds on the metal deck. He had never seen a Sarkathi up close before. They were larger than humans, built like ancient earth dragons from old stories. Their armor was ornate, covered in markings he could not read. But what struck him most was how they had fallen. Every single body faced inward, toward the center of the ship. They had been moving away from something. No, he realized. They had been moving toward something, attacking something. His scanner picked up trace atmosphere, but the oxygen levels were nearly zero. Whatever had happened here, the crew had suffocated. Slowly. Dennis had seen enough death in his emergency response days to know what that looked like. These warriors had clawed at their helmets near the end. They had died in panic and pain. The thought made him sick. He followed the trail of bodies deeper into the ship. The distress beacon grew stronger, leading him to a sealed door marked with symbols he assumed meant command quarters or something similar. The door had been damaged from the outside. Someone had tried very hard to get in. They had failed. Dennis studied the control panel. It was dead like everything else, but there was a manual override. He pulled the lever and the door groaned open with painful slowness. The room beyond was small and dark. Emergency lighting cast strange shadows across walls covered in charts and data screens. And in the center, slumped in a chair bolted to the floor, was a Sarkathi warrior in full ceremonial armor. She was alive. Barely. Dennis could hear her breathing through his suit comm. It was wet and labored, each breath a struggle. Her armor was pristine, unlike the bodies outside, but her helmet display showed critical warnings in a language he could not read. The oxygen indicator was a color he understood without translation. Red, empty, dying. He approached slowly, hands visible and empty. The warrior did not move. Her head was bowed, and her hands gripped the arms of her chair with desperate strength. She was holding herself upright through sheer will. "Can you hear me?" Dennis asked. His translator crackled as it attempted to convert his words into something she might understand. The warrior's head moved slightly. Just a fraction. Acknowledgement or coincidence, he could not tell. Dennis knelt beside her and examined the helmet. It was a beautiful piece of work, etched with patterns that seemed to tell a story. But right now it was a death trap. The seals were locked tight and the internal air supply had run out hours ago. She was breathing recycled carbon dioxide, slowly poisoning herself. "I am going to help you," he said, more to himself than to her. "I need to remove your helmet." His hands found the release mechanisms. They were different from human designs, but logical enough. He had trained on dozens of different pressure suit types during his emergency response career. The principles were always the same. Keep the person alive. Nothing else mattered. The seals hissed as he released them one by one. The warrior made a sound that might have been a protest or might have been hope. He could not tell. His hands worked automatically, following muscle memory from a life he had tried to leave behind. The final seal released with a click that seemed too small for what it meant. Dennis lifted the helmet away, and for the first time he saw her face. He had expected a monster. The propaganda had shown him monsters for years. Brutal alien warriors who killed without mercy, who valued honor over life, who saw humans as weak prey. Instead, he saw a person. She was young. Far younger than he had imagined. Her scales were a deep blue-green that had dulled from oxygen deprivation. Scars crossed her face in patterns that spoke of violence survived. But her eyes were what broke him. They were wide with terror and pain and something else he recognized. Immediately, shame. She was ashamed to be seen like this. Vulnerable, defeated, dying. Dennis felt hot tears on his cheeks before he realized he was crying, not from fear or disgust, from recognition. He had seen that look before, in mirrors and in the faces of people he could not save, the look of someone who had done everything right and lost anyway. "It's okay," he whispered, reaching for his emergency oxygen supply. "I've got you. You're going to be okay." The warrior's eyes focused on him for the first time. She tried to speak, but only a gasping sound emerged. Her lips were cracked and bleeding. How long had she been trapped here, slowly suffocating while her crew died outside? Dennis pressed the oxygen mask to her face and opened the valve. Pure air flooded into her lungs. She gasped and choked and gasped again, her whole body shaking with the effort of breathing. Her clawed hands came up weakly, touching the mask as if she could not believe it was real. He held the mask steady and watched as color slowly returned to her scales. Her breathing evened out, becoming less desperate. She was looking at him now, really looking, and he saw confusion in her eyes mixing with the terror and shame. Why was he helping her? That was what she wanted to know. He could see the question as clearly as if she had spoken it aloud. Dennis did not have a good answer. He just knew that leaving her to die was not something he could do. Not anymore. Not after all the people he had failed to save by following rules and protocols and common sense. This time he was going to save someone, even if she was supposed to be his enemy. The oxygen brought her back slowly, like watching someone surface from deep water. Syrah's eyes cleared first, then her muscles unclenched, then finally her breathing settled into something close to normal. Dennis kept the mask pressed to her face and watched the scanner readings on his suit display. Her biology was different enough from human that the numbers meant little, but he understood the basic concept. She was alive and she was getting stronger. When she tried to push the mask away, he let her. She needed to feel in control of something after everything. He understood that too. She sat up straighter in her chair and looked at him with an intensity that made him want to step back. Her eyes were gold with vertical pupils, and they studied him like he was a puzzle she needed to solve before it killed her. "Why?" Her voice was rough and strange through the translator, but the word was clear enough. Dennis sat back on his heels, giving her space. "You were dying." That is not an answer. She touched her throat with clawed fingers, feeling the scales there as if confirming she was still herself. "You are human. I am Sarkathi. We are enemies, are we?" Dennis asked. She looked at him like he had said something incredibly stupid. "Our people have been at war for 30 years. I've never shot at you. You've never shot at me. How does that make us enemies?" Syrah stared at him for a long moment. Then impossibly she laughed. It was a dry, painful sound, but it was genuine. Human logic. You care only for what is in front of you, not what came before or what will come after. Maybe. Dennis pulled off his helmet now that he knew the air in this room was still breathable, if barely. Or maybe I just think that letting someone suffocate when I have oxygen to spare is wrong, no matter what flag they wear. She studied him again, and this time there was something different in her expression. Not quite respect, but not contempt either. "I am Syrah, Navigation Officer of the Talon of Justice. I should tell you that my crew will kill you when they come to investigate. Your crew is dead," Dennis said quietly. "I saw them in the corridors." All of them. The words hit her like a physical blow. Her scales seemed to darken, and she gripped the arms of her chair until her claws scored marks in the metal. "All? I'm sorry." She turned away from him, looking at the dark screens on the walls. "Then I am dead as well. The shame of being the only survivor. of being found helpless by an enemy, of failing my duty. I should have died with them. Why didn't you? Dennis asked. The question seemed to surprise her. She was quiet for a long moment, and when she spoke again, her voice was softer. The captain ordered us to maintain course despite the life support failure. He said it would be dishonorable to turn back, that we would complete our mission or die trying. The crew obeyed. I tried to convince him to change course. There was a repair station within reach. We could have made it, but he refused. He said I spoke like a coward, like a human. She said the last word as if it tasted bitter. The crew agreed with him. They sealed the bridge and locked me in here when I tried to override the navigation. They said I would not be allowed to stain the ship's honor with weakness. I would die alone, separate from them. Dennis felt sick. They left you to suffocate because you wanted to save everyone? They left me to suffocate because I placed survival above duty. In our culture, there is no greater shame. She looked at him again, and there were no tears in her eyes, but he could see the pain anyway. You should understand that before you waste any more of your oxygen on me. I'm already dead by my people's judgment. You have only delayed the inevitable. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard, Dennis said. Sierra's eyes widened in shock. Clearly, no one had ever spoken to her like that before. Dennis stood up and paced the small room. So your captain was willing to kill everyone on this ship, including himself, just to avoid looking weak? And your crew went along with it, and they punished you for being the only one with sense enough to want to live? It is not about wanting to live. It is about honor. Honor? Dennis spat the word. I used to be an emergency responder. Do you know what that is? I saved people for a living. And one day there was a fire in a residential building. The evacuation protocol said to clear the lower floors first. So that's what I did. By the book. Perfect procedure. But there was a kid on the top floor, and by the time we got to him, it was too late. He died because I followed the rules instead of my instincts. He turned to face her. I quit the next day. I couldn't stand the idea that following orders and maintaining protocol was more important than saving a life. So don't tell me about honor when honor is just another word for following stupid orders that get people killed. Sierra stared at him in silence.
He had probably just destroyed any chance of her cooperating with him, but he did not care.
He was tired of systems that valued abstract concepts more than actual living beings. You are angry, she said finally. Yes. At me? No, at the captain who killed you all. At the crew who let it happen. At whatever culture thinks dying for no reason is somehow noble. She tilted her head, studying him with those strange golden eyes. You saved me because you are still angry about the child you could not save. It was not a question. Dennis swallowed hard and nodded. Maybe, does it matter why? No, Syrah said softly. No, I suppose it does not. She tried to stand, and her legs immediately buckled. Dennis caught her before she hit the floor, supporting her weight easily. She was lighter than he expected, her bones hollow like a bird's despite her size. Easy, he said. You've been oxygen deprived for hours. You need time to recover. I need medical attention, she corrected. The oxygen deprivation is not my only problem. I have internal injuries from when the crew tried to remove me from the navigation console. They were not gentle. Dennis felt his stomach drop. How bad? Bad enough that I will die without proper treatment. Your oxygen bought me hours, not days. He looked at her, at this alien warrior who had tried to save her crew and been punished for it, and made a decision that he knew would change his life forever. My ship has medical supplies. Basic stuff for humans, but maybe something will work. Can you walk? I can try, then let's go. We're getting you out of here. Syrah looked at him with an expression he could not quite read. Why are you doing this? You know what will happen if your people find out you helped me. They will call you a traitor. Dennis thought about the child he could not save and all the rules he had followed that led to that moment. Let them call me whatever they want. I'm done letting people die because it's easier than helping them. He helped her toward the door, and together they stepped over the threshold into the corridor lined with bodies. Syrah paused at each fallen warrior, speaking words in her own language that his translator could not capture. It took a long time, and every minute her breathing became more labored, but Dennis did not rush her. These were her people, even if they had left her to die. She deserved to say goodbye. When she finished, she leaned more heavily on him, and he could feel her trembling. Thank you, she whispered, for letting me do that. It's what any decent person would do. That is where you are wrong, she said. Most would not. That is what makes you dangerous. Dennis helped her forward into the dark corridor. Dangerous how? You make me think that perhaps humans and Sarkathi are not so different after all. That is the most dangerous thought a warrior can have. They walked together through the ship of the dead, and Dennis wondered if she was right. Getting through the damaged sections of the warship became a test of endurance that pushed both of them to their limits. Sierra's legs gave out twice in the first corridor, and each time Dennis caught her before she fell completely. She was trying to hide how much pain she was in, but he could see it in the way she held herself, in the careful shallowness of her breathing. They passed more bodies as they moved toward the docking port where his cargo ship waited. Some of the dead Sarkathi had removed their helmets before the end, clawing at their throats as the air ran out. Others still wore their armor, sealed inside until the very last moment. Dennis tried not to look too closely at their faces. "Tell me about your world," Sierra said suddenly. Her voice was strained, but Dennis understood what she was doing. Talking helped distract from the pain and the exhaustion. He had used the same technique with injured people during his emergency response days. Earth, it's pretty standard. 1 star, mostly water, decent atmosphere. We've spread out to a few dozen colony worlds now, but Earth is still home for most humans. Your people spread quickly, too quickly, some of my leaders say. They believe humans are like a disease that consumes everything in its path. Dennis helped her over a section of collapsed ceiling. And what do you believe? I believe that all species expand when given the opportunity. Sarkathi space was not always as large as it is now. We took it from others, just as others took it from whoever came before. The galaxy belongs to whoever is strong enough to claim it. That's a depressing way to look at things. Sierra made a sound that might have been a laugh. Truth is often depressing. But you asked what I believe, not what I wish were true. They reached a junction where 3 corridors met, and Dennis paused to check his portable scanner. The route to his ship required going through a section that had been breached. The corridor beyond showed hard vacuum on his display. We have a problem. Sierra looked at the sealed blast door ahead of them. The outer hull is compromised? Yeah. We need to cross about 20 meters of open space to reach the next pressurized section. I can make it in my suit, but yours is damaged. The seals won't hold in vacuum. She leaned against the wall and he could see exhaustion written in every line of her body. Then you should go. Bring medical equipment back if you wish to continue playing rescuer. That's not happening. You'll be dead before I get back. Perhaps that would be simpler. Dennis turned to face her fully. Look, I didn't drag you this far just to leave you now. We're both getting off this ship, and we're both going to survive this. I just need to figure out how. Sierra watched him with those unsettling golden eyes. You are stubborn. I've been called worse. He studied his environmental suit, then looked at her damaged armor. An idea was forming, one that made him uncomfortable but might be their only option. My suit can support 2 people, barely. If we share the life support, we might be able to make it across. Share? She tilted her head in that bird-like way she had. You mean we would both be inside your suit? Not inside, but connected. I can extend the oxygen supply and seal the gaps in your armor with emergency patches. It will be tight and uncomfortable, and if anything goes wrong, we both die. But it's the only way I see us getting through that corridor. Sierra was quiet for a long moment. In my culture, sharing life support with someone is an act of extreme intimacy. It means you trust them with your survival in the most literal sense possible. In my culture, it's just practical. Everything is practical with humans. You have no poetry in your souls. Dennis pulled out his emergency seal kit and started preparing the patches. If you're going to insult me, at least wait until after I save your life. It's more effective that way. She surprised him by laughing, then immediately winced and pressed a hand to her side. The movement left a dark stain on her fingers. Blood. Her blood was more purple than red, but it meant the same thing. She was bleeding internally and it was getting worse. Dennis worked quickly, sealing the breaches in her armor and connecting her respirator to his suit's backup supply. The proximity required him to stand close enough to feel the heat radiating from her scales. She smelled like ozone and something metallic he could not identify. Her breathing was right by his ear, labored but steady. This is strange, she said quietly. Which part? All of it. Yesterday you were the enemy. Today you are the only thing keeping me alive. Tomorrow, who knows? Maybe I will try to kill you once my strength returns. Dennis attached the final connection and checked the seals. Will you? No, but I should want to. That is what makes this strange. He met her eyes just inches from his own. For what it's worth, I should probably want to leave you here. Sarkathi have killed a lot of humans. Maybe you've killed humans yourself. I have not. I am a navigator, not a warrior. I chart courses and calculate trajectories. I have never fired a weapon at a living being, but you would have if ordered. She looked away. Yes, I would have. That is what duty means. And now I am not certain what duty means anymore. Your captain left a child to die following orders. My captain killed his crew following orders. Perhaps both our people have confused obedience with righteousness. Dennis activated his suit's external thrusters and secured his arm around her waist. Ready? No. But I suspect that will not stop you. The blast door cycled open and the air rushed out with a roar that faded quickly to silence. Beyond, stars glittered in the black. The next pressurized section was visible across the gap, tantalizingly close and impossibly far at the same time. Dennis triggered the thrusters, and they launched into the void together. The sensation of weightlessness combined with the fear made his heart pound. Sirah's claws dug into his suit. Not enough to breach, but enough to let him know she was terrified. He kept his arm tight around her and focused on the corridor ahead. Halfway across, her oxygen connection slipped. Dennis felt it through his suit telemetry, the sudden drop in pressure that meant she was not getting air. He grabbed for the line while trying to maintain their trajectory, his fingers clumsy in the heavy gloves. Sirah's body went rigid in his arms. She was holding her breath, he realized, holding it and trusting him to fix the problem before her lungs gave out. That trust was something he had not expected, something that made this all feel suddenly more real. He reconnected the line and heard her gasp as oxygen flooded back into her helmet. I've got you, he said. Just a few more seconds. They hit the far wall harder than he intended, and Sirah cried out in pain. The impact drove the air from her lungs, and Dennis could feel her struggling to breathe again. He dragged them both through the emergency airlock and slammed his fist on the cycle control. Air hissed into the small chamber, and Sirah collapsed against him. I think I preferred suffocating slowly, she wheezed. That was too fast. Dennis checked her over, looking for new injuries. The impact had reopened something inside her, and more purple blood was seeping through her armor. We're almost there. My ship is just beyond the next door. Good. Her voice was fading. I am tired of almost dying. I would like to try simply living for a while. He helped her through the final corridor, and his cargo ship appeared ahead. Humble and battered, but the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. Home. Safety. A chance. Dennis got them both aboard and sealed the airlock behind them. Sirah made it 3 steps into his ship before her legs finally gave out completely. This time he did not try to catch her. He just lowered them both to the floor and let her rest her head against his shoulder. Thank you, she whispered. Don't thank me yet. We still have to keep you alive. Nevertheless, thank you. Dennis looked down at the alien warrior bleeding on his cargo ship floor and wondered what he had gotten himself into. Nothing would ever be simple again, but somehow that felt right. Dennis half-carried Sirah to the medical bay, which was barely more than a closet with a fold-down bed and basic diagnostic equipment. He had upgraded it when he started hauling medical supplies, but it was designed for human emergencies, not alien biology. The medical AI came online as he laid her on the bed, sensors immediately scanning her body. The results made his blood run cold. The AI displayed its analysis in cold clinical terms: severe internal bleeding, damage to multiple organ systems, unknown toxicity levels from oxygen deprivation. Estimated survival time without intervention, 4 to 6 hours. Estimated survival time with available medical intervention, 6 to 8 hours. She was dying and he could not stop it. Well? Sirah asked. Her eyes were closed, but she could probably hear the concern in his silence. You need a real medical facility. This AI doesn't know enough about your biology to treat you properly. Then I will die here instead of on my ship. At least there is some variety in that. She tried to smile, but it came out as more of a grimace. Dennis pulled off his helmet and ran a hand through his sweat-damp hair. The nearest station with xenobiology facilities is 3 days away at maximum speed. But it's in human-controlled space. They'll scan my ship at the border checkpoint. If they find you, they will kill me, or worse, they will study me. Sirah opened her eyes and looked at him. You should leave me here and continue with your cargo run. You have already done more than anyone could expect. Stop telling me to leave you behind. Stop being foolishly noble. Dennis turned to the medical supplies he had been transporting. Boxes and boxes of equipment meant for a colony on the frontier. He started pulling them open, searching for anything that might help. Surgical tools, medications, diagnostic equipment. Nothing designed for Sarkathi biology, but maybe something universal enough to make a difference. "What are you doing?" Sira asked. "Stabilizing you for the trip. I'm not letting you die in my medical bay after everything we went through. Dennis." She said his name carefully, like she was testing how it felt. "You will be branded a traitor for helping me. Your people will never forgive you. Then I'll deal with that when it happens." He found a coagulation booster that worked on most carbon-based life forms and loaded it into an injector. "This might hurt. Everything hurts. What is a little more?" He pressed the injector against her neck just below the scales. She hissed in pain but did not pull away. The medication would slow the internal bleeding, buying them hours instead of minutes. It was not enough, but it was something. While he worked, Dennis noticed something he had missed before. Sira's armor had storage compartments built into it, and they were full of data chips and handwritten notes. He pulled one out curiously, and the paper crinkled under his fingers. It was covered in mathematical equations and star charts. "What is this?" he asked. Sira turned her head to look, and something like fear crossed her face. "My research." "You should not look at that." But Dennis was already looking. The charts showed routes through the contested space between human and Sarkathi territory. Not battle plans or invasion routes. These were peaceful passages, trade corridors, paths that avoided military checkpoints on both sides. "You were mapping safe routes," he said slowly. "Ways for ships to travel without encountering either military." Sira closed her eyes. "It does not matter now. It matters a lot. Why would a Sarkathi navigation officer be doing this?" She was quiet for so long that he thought she would not answer. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "Because I believe this war is foolish. Because I believe that trade and communication would benefit both our peoples more than endless conflict. Because my mentor taught me that the strongest warrior is the one who never has to fight." "What happened to your mentor?" "He was executed for cowardice. They made his students watch so we would learn what happens to those who question military authority." She opened her eyes, and there was deep sadness there. "I continued his work in secret. I thought if I could prove that peaceful coexistence was possible, that both sides could prosper through cooperation, perhaps things might change." Dennis looked through more of her notes. They were extensive. Years of work, detailed analysis of resource distribution, population centers, trade opportunities. This was not just idealism. This was a comprehensive plan for peace, your ship, he said. It was heading toward a human colony convoy, wasn't it? That's why your captain refused to change course. He was going to attack them. Yes. The convoy was carrying families, children, non-combatants. It would have been a massacre dressed up as a military victory. Sira's claws clenched on the bed. "I tried to change our course. I told the captain that attacking civilians would turn this war into something neither side could come back from. He said I spoke like a human sympathizer, so the crew turned on you. The crew is loyal to the hierarchy. The captain is the voice of the military leadership, and the military leadership wants this war to continue. There is profit in conflict, power, control. Peace would require both sides to give up those things." Dennis sat down heavily on the edge of the bed. "Your crew died to preserve the mission, to attack those families." "Yes, and I lived by abandoning my post and my duty. By my people's standards, they died heroes, and I am the villain of this story. That's backwards. From your perspective, perhaps, but righteousness is always a matter of perspective." Dennis made a decision then. He pulled out his datapad and started transferring Sira's research onto his own systems. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Making sure your work doesn't die with you. If something happens, if I can't get you to the medical facility in time, at least this survives. They will call it propaganda. Both sides will reject it. Maybe. But at least it will exist. At least people will have the chance to see what could be possible." The medical AI beeped, drawing Dennis's attention. Sira's vital signs were stabilizing slightly. The coagulation booster was working. He had bought them time, but not much. Dennis went to the cockpit and plotted a course to the nearest station with proper xenobiology facilities. The route would take them through human space. He would have to hide Sira somehow, forge documents, maybe bribe officials. It was risky and probably impossible, but what choice did he have? His communication console lit up with an incoming message. Dennis felt his stomach drop as he read it. The human colony that Sira's ship had been targeting had filed an incident report. Military vessels were being dispatched to investigate the derelict warship. They would arrive at his position in less than 18 hours. If they found him here with Sira, questions would be asked. Questions he could not answer without condemning himself. He needed to leave now, but that meant pushing his ship beyond safe limits. The strain might damage his engines beyond repair. Dennis looked back at the medical bay where Sira lay dying. He thought about her research, her mentor who was executed for wanting peace, her crew who chose death over dishonor. He thought about the child he could not save because he followed protocols. Not this time, he muttered. Dennis activated the engines and set course for the medical station at maximum acceleration. The ship groaned in protest, every rivet and weld tested beyond its design limits. Warnings flashed across his console, but he ignored them all. He had made his choice. Now he just had to live with the consequences. In the medical bay, Sira heard the engines roar to life and felt the sudden acceleration press her into the bed. She smiled despite the pain. The foolish human was really going to try to save her. He was going to risk everything for an enemy he barely knew. Perhaps her mentor had been right after all. Perhaps there was hope for both their peoples, if enough individuals were willing to be foolish enough to try. She closed her eyes and let the darkness take her, trusting that Dennis would not let her die alone. Pushing his cargo ship past its limits turned out to be a terrible idea. Dennis realized this 12 hours into the journey when the primary engine started making a grinding sound that no engine should ever make. The secondary engine had already shut down from thermal overload, and the tertiary thruster was operating at 40% capacity. His ship was tearing itself apart, and they were still 2 days from the medical station. The situation got worse when his automated distress protocol activated. The ship's systems, detecting critical failures, sent out an emergency signal without asking permission. It was a safety feature he had forgotten about, designed to save lives. Now it was going to get them both killed. Military frequencies lit up on his communication console. Multiple vessels were altering course to intercept him. They thought he was a merchant in genuine distress. They were coming to help. Dennis wanted to laugh at the irony. He was in distress, just not the kind they would understand. He left the cockpit and went to check on Sira. She was awake, which was either a good sign or a bad one. Her eyes tracked him as he entered the medical bay, and she managed a weak smile. "You look terrible," she said. "You look worse." "Fair." She tried to sit up and failed. "What is that sound?" "It reminds me of dying engines. Probably because they are dying. I pushed the ship too hard trying to get to the medical station quickly." "Ah, so we will crash before we arrive. How disappointing." Dennis checked her vital signs. The medical AI showed improvement, but only marginal. She needed real treatment soon, or all of this would be for nothing. "We're not going to crash, but we do have another problem." He explained about the distress signal and the incoming military vessels. Sira listened without interrupting, and when he finished, she nodded slowly. "Then this is where our journey ends. They will board your ship, find me, and execute me as a war criminal. You will be arrested as a traitor." We both knew this was the likely outcome. "I'm not giving up yet. You cannot hide me. Their scanners will detect my biosignature immediately." Dennis had been thinking about that problem for hours. "Maybe I can't hide you, but I can hide the truth. I'll tell them you're my prisoner, that I captured you from the derelict ship and I'm bringing you in for interrogation." Sira studied him with those unsettling golden eyes. "They will want to take me immediately. Transfer me to a military vessel. Then I'll refuse. I'll say you're too unstable to move, which is actually true. I'll say I'm claiming salvage rights on you and your ship, which is legal in merchant law. You would claim to own me? Temporarily. Until we get to the medical station. Once you're treated, we'll figure out the rest." She was quiet for a moment. "This plan has many ways it could fail. Got a better one?" "No." She touched his hand with her clawed fingers, the gesture surprisingly gentle. "Thank you for trying. Even if it fails, thank you for caring enough to try." Dennis was about to respond when his communication console beeped urgently. He returned to the cockpit and opened the channel. A human officer appeared on the screen, her uniform crisp and her expression professional. "This is Commander Stevens of the patrol ship Defender. We received your distress signal. What is your situation?" Dennis took a breath and became someone else. Someone confident and slightly annoyed instead of terrified. "Dennis Rowe, independent cargo hauler. I've got engine troubles, but I'm managing them. No need for assistance. Your automated system indicates critical failures. The automated system is overly cautious. I've been flying ships since before that system was installed. I know my vessel better than any computer. Commander Stevens frowned. Nevertheless, protocol requires that we investigate. We're matching your course and speed. Prepare for boarding inspection. That's not necessary. It's also not optional. We have reports of a Sarkathi warship in this sector. Until we verify your situation, all vessels are subject to search. Standard wartime protocols. Dennis felt his chest tighten. I understand. I'll prepare for boarding. The channel closed and Dennis sat back in his chair. They had maybe an hour before the military ship arrived. 1 hour to prepare for a confrontation that would probably end with both of them in custody. He went back to Syrah and explained the new development. She listened calmly as if they were discussing the weather instead of their imminent capture. Put me in restraints, she said. What? If I am your prisoner, I should look like a prisoner. Put me in restraints and seal my armor. Make it look like you subdued a dangerous enemy. Dennis hesitated. That feels wrong. It is necessary. And Dennis, you should injure me more. Absolutely not. I'm serious. I need to look like someone who fought back when you captured me. Right now I look like someone you cared for tenderly. That will raise questions you cannot answer. She was right and he hated it. I'm not hurting you. Then let me hurt myself. Give me something to strike my face against. Make it look convincing. In the end, Dennis could not watch her do it. He left the medical bay while Syrah added bruises and cuts to her existing injuries. When he returned, she looked like someone who had been in a violent struggle. It made him sick. He placed her in restraints that were loose enough not to cause pain but tight enough to look legitimate. She tested them and nodded approval. Good. Now you need to practice your story. Why did you board that ship? What made you think you could capture a Sarkathi warrior alone? I saw an opportunity for a bounty. Sarkathi prisoners are valuable for intelligence purposes. Better, but add greed. Make it about profit, not bravery. Greed is believable. They spent the next hour refining their story, creating a version of events that was close enough to the truth to be credible, but different enough to keep them both alive. Dennis was a merchant who saw a chance for profit. Syrah was a warrior who fought hard but lost. Nothing noble, nothing complicated, just business. When the military ship arrived, Dennis met Commander Stevens at his airlock. She brought 2 armed soldiers with her, and all 3 wore expressions that said they expected trouble. Permission to come aboard, Stevens said, though it was not really a question. Granted. Watch your head on the inner door. This ship wasn't built for military types. They entered, and Stevens immediately noticed the damaged state of the vessel. Panels hung loose. Wiring was exposed. The whole place smelled like burning insulation and recycled air gone stale. You said you were managing the situation, Stevens observed. Managing doesn't mean fixing. I'm keeping us moving. That's all that matters. And your cargo? Medical supplies for the frontier colonies. All documented and legal. Stevens nodded to her soldiers and they began scanning the ship. It took them less than a minute to detect Syrah's biosignature in the medical bay. Commander, we have a Sarkathi life sign. Stevens's hand went to her sidearm. Explain, now. Dennis had rehearsed this moment, but his mouth still went dry. Salvage. I found a derelict Sarkathi warship and investigated. Found 1 survivor. Figured she would be worth something to intelligence. You captured a Sarkathi warrior alone. She was barely conscious when I found her. Not much of a fight. The lie tasted bitter, but he kept his expression neutral. Stevens studied him for a long moment. Show me. They went to the medical bay together. Syrah lay on the bed in her restraints, looking every bit the defeated enemy. She did not acknowledge their presence, staring at the ceiling with empty eyes. The fresh bruises on her face stood out against her scales. This is a navigation officer, Stevens said, reading the insignia on Syrah's armor. Not a combat specialist. I'm not complaining about easy salvage. Stevens pulled out a scanner and checked Syrah's vital signs. She needs immediate medical attention. These injuries are severe. That's why I'm heading to the nearest station. We can provide better care aboard Defender. We'll transfer her now. Dennis felt panic rise in his throat. If they took Syrah, she would die in military custody long before anyone bothered to treat her. No, salvage law is clear. She's my property until proper compensation is arranged. This is wartime. Salvage law doesn't apply to enemy combatants. Then I'm invoking merchant protection codes. She's cargo, and cargo stays with the vessel until delivery. Stevens's eyes narrowed. You seem awfully concerned about a prisoner who should mean nothing to you. I'm concerned about profit. If she dies in your custody, I lose my bounty. If she lives long enough to be interrogated, I get paid. It's basic economics. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut. Stevens looked from Dennis to Syrah and back again. She was suspicious, that much was obvious. But suspicion was not proof. Finally, she stepped back. Fine, keep your prisoner, but we're escorting you to the medical station, and when we arrive, she becomes military property. No arguments. Understood. Stevens and her soldiers left, but Dennis knew they would be watching his ship closely now. Every move monitored. Every communication logged. He had bought them time, but not freedom. When they were alone again, Syrah opened her eyes and looked at him. That was well done. You are a better liar than I expected. Thanks, I guess. The commander suspects something, though. She will be watching. I know. And when we reach the medical station, they will take me away. Dennis sat down beside the bed, exhausted. I'll think of something. You cannot save me from everything, Dennis. Sometimes the best we can do is delay the inevitable. Watch me, she smiled slightly. Your stubbornness will get you killed, probably. But at least I'll die trying. Outside, the military ship matched their course, a constant reminder that they were running out of time and options. But they were still alive, still moving forward, and that had to count for something. The medical station appeared on the view screen like a small city floating in space. Dennis had never been so relieved and terrified to see a destination in his life. Syrah's condition had worsened during the journey despite his best efforts. The medical AI now gave her minutes instead of hours. They had arrived just in time, or perhaps too late. Commander Stevens contacted him before they docked. We'll be taking custody of the prisoner immediately upon arrival. Medical personnel will stabilize her, then she'll be transferred to a detention facility. She needs surgery, not a cell. That's not your concern anymore. You've done your part, and you'll be compensated according to salvage regulations. Consider yourself lucky we're not charging you with interfering with a military operation. The channel closed before Dennis could respond. He went to the medical bay where Syrah lay unconscious. Her breathing was so shallow he had to watch carefully to see her chest rise and fall. I'm sorry, he whispered. I tried. While Dennis prepared to dock, something unexpected happened. A civilian medical ship appeared on the station's approach vector, broadcasting an emergency override code. The voice that came through his speakers was calm but firm. This is Dr. Rachel Foster of the medical vessel Mercy. We've been monitoring the situation regarding the Sarkathi patient. Under interstellar medical law, any patient requiring emergency xenobiology care falls under civilian medical jurisdiction, not military. We're assuming custody. Commander Stevens responded immediately. Dr. Foster, this is a military matter. The Sarkathi is a prisoner of war. The Sarkathi is a patient who will die without immediate intervention. Military jurisdiction ends where medical necessity begins. Check your regulations, Commander. I have legal precedent on my side. Dennis listened to the exchange with growing hope. He did not know who Dr. Foster was or why she was intervening, but she was giving them a chance. The argument between Stevens and Foster continued while Dennis docked at the station. Medical teams were already waiting, and Dr. Foster herself met him at his airlock. She was a woman in her 50s with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. You're the merchant who found her? She asked. Yes, she needs help immediately. I know. I've been tracking your ship's medical telemetry since you activated your distress beacon. That's some impressive emergency care you provided with limited resources. She did not wait for a response, moving past him to the medical bay. Her team followed with equipment Dennis did not recognize. They lifted Syrah onto a portable bed, connected sensors, and started administering medications that made the medical AI's warnings finally stop screaming. Will she live? Dennis asked. If we operate in the next 10 minutes, possibly. If we wait any longer, no. Dr. Foster glanced at him. You care about her. That's not standard for someone claiming salvage rights. I just want her to survive. Then let us work. They took Syrah away, and Dennis was left alone in his damaged ship. Military personnel arrived to question him, and he repeated his story about salvage and profit until the words felt meaningless. They searched his ship, copied his logs, and treated him like a criminal trying to look innocent. Hours passed. The station's waiting area was full of people, and Dennis sat among them feeling disconnected from everything. He should have been relieved. Sirah was getting treatment. He had accomplished what he set out to do. So why did he feel like he had failed? You're the one who brought in the Sarkathi. A man sat down beside Dennis uninvited. He was young, maybe mid-20s, with the kind of casual confidence that came from never having faced real consequences. Yes, people are talking about it. Some say you're a hero for capturing an enemy. Others say you should have let her die out there. Me? I'm just curious why you bothered. Dennis looked at him. Does it matter? Maybe. The galaxy's full of people who follow rules without thinking. Not many who break them for something that matters. The young man stood up. My name is Peter, by the way. I'm a journalist. If you ever want to tell your real story, not the official version, find me. He left before Dennis could respond, disappearing into the crowd. A journalist. That was either very good or very bad news. Dr. Foster emerged from surgery 6 hours after they arrived. She looked exhausted but satisfied. She's alive. The surgery was complicated, but we got to her in time. She'll need weeks of recovery, but she'll make it. Dennis felt something unknot in his chest. Can I see her? Not yet. She's still unconscious. But there's something you should know. Foster pulled out a data pad and showed him a file. While treating her, we discovered extensive research files embedded in her armor's data storage. Star charts, trade routes, peace proposals. Do you know what this is? Her life's work. It's more than that. This is evidence that not all Sarkathi support the war. This could change things if it reaches the right people. Foster looked at him seriously. Did you know about this when you saved her? Not at first. But yes, I knew. Then you didn't save her for salvage rights? No. Foster smiled slightly. Good. The galaxy has enough people motivated by profit. It needs more people motivated by conscience. She handed him the data pad. I'm sending copies of this research to every major news network and scientific institution I can reach. Military command is going to be furious with me, but that's nothing new. Why are you doing this? Because I took an oath to preserve life, all life, regardless of species or politics. Because I'm tired of watching young people die in a war that benefits no one, except those in power. Because someone needs to show both our peoples that cooperation is possible. She put a hand on his shoulder. You started something today, whether you meant to or not. Dennis wanted to ask what that meant, but Foster was already being called away to another emergency. He sat in the waiting area and watched news feeds on the public screens. Stories were starting to appear. Not about the military operation or the captured Sarkathi warrior, but about something else. Someone had leaked Sirah's research. The files were spreading across human space faster than anyone could stop them. Scientists were analyzing the data. Journalists were asking questions. People were talking about the possibility of peace for the first time in years. Military officials appeared on screens, trying to control the narrative. They called the research propaganda. They warned about Sarkathi deception. But their words sounded hollow compared to the actual data, the actual evidence of years of work dedicated to finding peaceful solutions. Commander Stevens found Dennis in the waiting area. She did not look happy. Did you know this would happen? No. But you knew about the research? Yes. She studied him for a long moment. You've created a significant problem. Military command wants you arrested. Civilian authorities want you protected. The media wants to interview you. And I still can't figure out if you're incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Can I be both? Stevens surprised him by laughing. Probably. For what it's worth, I hope you did the right thing. I'm tired of this war too. But I follow orders, and orders say I should bring you in for questioning. Are you going to? Not today. Today I'm going to file a report that says you were uncooperative but ultimately harmless. Tomorrow, someone else's problem. She turned to leave, then paused. The Sarkathi Sirah. Take care of her when she wakes up. She's going to need someone on her side, and you seem to be volunteering for the job. Stevens left, and Dennis was alone again. 3 days later, they let him see Sirah. She was awake, sitting up in bed and looking much healthier. Her scales had regained their color, and her eyes were clear and focused. You look terrible, she said when she saw him. I've been worried. About me? How foolish. But she smiled as she said it. I hear my research has caused quite the disturbance. It's spreading everywhere. People are actually talking about peace. Talking is easy. Doing is harder. She gestured to the chair beside her bed. Sit. Tell me what happens now. Dennis sat down and realized he had no idea what happened now. I suppose you recover? Then we figure out the rest. They will not let me return to Sarkathi space. I am a traitor to my people now. Then you stay here. Continue your research. Show both sides that cooperation is possible. And you? What will you do? I have no idea. My ship is barely functional. My reputation is destroyed. Military command thinks I'm a traitor and civilian authorities don't know what to make of me. He looked at her. But I'd do it all again. Every choice. Every risk. Sira reached out and touched his hand with her clawed fingers. Thank you. For seeing me as a person instead of an enemy. For choosing conscience over convenience. For being foolish enough to care. Someone had to be. They sat together in the medical room while outside. The galaxy slowly began to change. News of Sira's research spread to Sarkathi space, where it found others like her who had been waiting for permission to speak openly about peace. Military leaders on both sides scrambled to maintain control, but the conversation had begun and could not be stopped. It would take years, maybe decades, before real peace became possible. But it had to start somewhere. It had to start with one person choosing to help another, choosing to see past propaganda and politics to the individual struggling to breathe. Months later, Dennis received a new cargo hauling contract. The route took him through space lanes that had been contested territory just a short time ago. But things were different now. Civilian ships moved freely while military vessels watched from a distance, uncertain how to respond to the changing reality. Sira traveled with him, continuing her research and building networks of like-minded individuals on both sides. They carried messages between peace advocates, transported supplies to neutral zones, and proved every day that cooperation between humans and Sarkathi was not just possible but beneficial. One evening, as they approached a trading station where both species gathered openly, Sira stood beside Dennis in the cockpit and watched the lights of ships moving peacefully past each other. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. "Saving me that day?" Dennis thought about everything that had happened. The risks he took, the comfortable life he gave up, the simplicity he lost. No, not for a second. Good. Because I have another project in mind and it will require even more foolish nobility from you. He laughed. Tell me about it. As they docked at the station, surrounded by humans and Sarkathi working together, Dennis realized something important. Change did not come from governments or militaries or grand declarations. It came from small acts of conscience, from individuals choosing to extend compassion across divides, from the accumulation of 1,000 small moments where someone decided to help instead of hate. He had uncovered her face and seen a person struggling to breathe. He had chosen to help, and that single choice rippled outward until it touched thousands of lives. That was humanity's real strength. Not weapons or technology or dominance, the ability to see suffering and respond with compassion. The courage to question authority when authority demanded cruelty. The stubborn insistence that every life mattered, regardless of what flag it fought under or what species it belonged to. Dennis smiled as they entered the station together. The galaxy was full of problems, and fixing them would take more than one human and one Sarkathi working together. But they had started something that could not be stopped. One small act of conscience at a time.